hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I say we've got to make him like 6 inches shorter since he wasn't here.
Harold wanted to do bunny ears.
Okay.
Ah. Broke it. There we go.
When is this?
Neosho County Community College.
Oh, is that the fundraiser?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to
Oh,
go to
okay.
that.
Oh,
December, right?
Yeah,
December
the 5th.
5th, I
yeah.
think.
It's my
Going to San
birthday.
Antonio?
No, I'm doing a
But I'll be at
presentation at
Wichita.
KASB
Oh,
conference
yes,
in
that's
Wichita.
My iPad says 7 o'clock, so let's start. All right. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because my iPad says it's 7 o'clock. So let us be, we only have 6 members present. Bill is absent. Let us begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. We are now to the consent agenda.
I'd like to bring out the Wilson and the van for discussion.
So 3.02 and 3.04 to be brought out for discussion. So we will approve 3.01, 3, 5, and 6, and then discuss the other two. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Thank you. 6-0. All right, Harold.
On the Wilson contract, did we have other, I don't know who's in charge of getting them, but did we have other bids? And then, I guess, do we have an overall scope of services for the Wilson group?
We do. And as I explained in my board update, the Wilson contract is really part of our contract with DLR. Our work with DLR includes they do the bids and the contracts for surveyors and those kinds of things. I simply put this on this agenda so that everybody could see it. You could know what's going on. Everyone asked to be informed of anything that was more than $20,000. So this is it's really not necessary to have board approval. I just wanted it to be on the agenda so everybody could see it in an effort to be as transparent as we could.
So it's part of the DLR contract, it's not outside their contract?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
All right. Now, approval of the van.
Yeah, what are we using the van for? What's the need for the van? Did we trade anything off, or?
No, we haven't purchased the van until we have board approval. The need for the van, we've actually needed this for a couple of years. I've talked about it before. It'll be purchased with special education funds, and we have no extra vans to transport students to work study and those kinds of things. So if one should break down or we need to take one out of town or something like that, we're pretty well stuck. Several of our vans have hundreds of thousands of miles on them. So we do have the money in special education funds to purchase this van. So we need to
Okay,
purchase it.
so it's more than just special education. I mean, it would be also transporting as needed.
Special education kids.
Okay,
Yeah,
Can't use it for anything else.
okay.
right,
Because it's purchased with special education.
right.
So are you okay with all that? Any other questions about these two items? If not, then can we approve both of these together then? I need a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
I move to approve 3.02 and 3.04.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, 6-0. I have no comments from the public, so we are going to go to 5.01, the audit report. Mr. Mays.
If you have the audit report in front of you. I will just touch on highlights. If you have any particular questions, you can flag me down, and we'll try to answer those questions as we go along, or at the end, whichever one's best for you. So if you go to the page titled Independent Auditors Report, okay, basically our responsibility is to give you an opinion on the financial statements which come from you. The first paragraph in here basically is telling you what those financial statements consist of. It also tells you what the manager's responsibility is in terms of fair presentation in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which means you've opted out of generally accepted accounting principles, which you do each year by resolution, and into Kansas Municipal Accounting and Audit Guide presentation for financial statements. Our responsibility is to audit those financial statements in accordance with auditing standards in the United States, governmental auditing standards due to the federal dollars that you receive, and also the Kansas Municipal Audit Guide, which is a special purpose financial statements. As part of that process, we do a lot of testing, inquiries, a number of procedures that we perform on those financial statements, and we believe that we obtain enough evidence and appropriate evidence to give our opinion. And if you go down, it says opinions. The first one, because you opted out of generally accepted accounting principles and these financial statements are available to the public, we have to say that you didn't do it in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And as such, we give an adverse opinion on the fact that you didn't do them in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. But if you turn to the top of the next page, the opinion on regulatory basis accounting, as I indicated earlier, you've opted into Kansas Municipal Audit Accounting Guide, and under those standards and under that presentation, we feel that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which this is the format that is used by the majority of schools in the state of Kansas. There's like one or two that have a gap basis presentation. Almost all the other schools do this regulatory basis financial statements. There's a couple other paragraphs on that page. One talks about the supplemental information. As we go forward, you're going to see that the one statement up in front of the footnotes is just a summary type of all the different funds that you have, and actually the detail is back under supplemental information in terms of what's going on within each fund in terms of, what was spent for salaries, what was received for tax revenues, et cetera. We also have to tell everybody that, again, in that next paragraph down to the second from the bottom, that the reporting is under governmental auditing standards due to the fact that you have federal funds here. And we'll talk about that when we get to those two reports. We also have to talk a little bit about the fact that in that last paragraph that we've looked at the 2014 information which we present in supplemental information. We use the same procedures on it as we did on the other financial statement information that's presented, and we feel that it's comparative and that it is fairly stated. So if you turn to the next page, actually page 3, 4, 5, and 6 lay out all of the different funds that you have, and it's in a summary telling you what's happened from beginning unencumbered cash, what the receipts and expenditures were in total, back to ending unencumbered cash, and then we add back those payables that are included in expenditures in order to tie it back to your ending cash balances. And if you go to the page 6 down at the bottom, we show what makes up that cash in terms of checking accounts, money market accounts, certificates of deposit, et cetera. So that's why there's all this tying out, showing kind of in detail what it is. Now, just at a quick glance, on pages 3 and 4, your supplemental general fund went down. Basically, I just kind of highlighted the funds that changed by more than $50,000 from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Your supplemental general fund went down, but your at-risk, your capital outlay, your food service, your special education, your career and technical education co-op, and contingency reserve are all funds that went up by more than $50,000. And some of them just went up because there was more of a transfer out of the general and supplemental fund supplemental general into those funds, like the career and technology education. The transfers were up about 100,000 out of the general fund compared to the year before. And food service, I think some of the transfers into that. And the contingency reserve, the only thing that really did go on there is the transfer out of the general fund over to that fund in order to get that balance up for what may happen in the future, basically. On page 5 and 6, the two largest increases occurred in your bond and interest in your construction fund. And as you well know, you had a bond issue this year. The majority of that money goes into that construction fund and is being used for the projects that you have outlined here on this podium here. And bond and interest received some of those bond proceeds that weren't made for that because you're able to sell them at a premium. And that allows you to make principal payments out of that particular funds that are coming in. After you get past page 6, you got 7 and 8. They're talking about just in general about what makes up the municipal entity and the fact that we also present the communities and schools as part of the presentation in the front. Talks about the types of funds that you may have, your budget process. Then on page 9, we talk about your deposits and investments. One of the processes that we're supposed to do is compliance testing while we're out here, and the Kansas statute lays out a number of things that we're supposed to look at. One of them, making sure that your deposits are adequately secured, either through FDIC coverage or pledged securities, and you were okay in that respect. You had a bank balance was $659,268 from Federal Depository Insurance, and you had $73,469,839 in pledged collateral against the rest of the balance in order to have it adequately secured. On page F and G, or I mean page 10, F and G, in substance payments. This is one of the parts of as a CPA I get a little frustrated with, the state telling us that you are doing a cash basis statement. Oh, but by the way, we're going to have to add some stuff back because we give the money to you late. And that's what this is basically, that first note is telling you is that you received money that was for the year June 30th, 2015, but you didn't receive it until July. And that's by design by the state. It's not an accident. So basically the last two payments for the general fund and the supplemental general fund came in July of this year, or of the year that you're currently in, which is 15-16, but they have to apply it back to the previous year. The long-term debt, again, as you all know, you issued a new debt issue, and on page 11, page down, you get to see that you issued a 2015A and 2015B. $63 million of that's being used for the projects. $1,150,000 was basically used to pay off some of the debt on the 2013 issue. So at the end of the year, you went from $25 million, $64 million more in debt, $2.8 million in payments. So your net change was $61 million. So you're now sitting at $86,710,000 in terms of what your debt is for your obligation bonds. You also have some capital leases that are presented there, but they're rather small. It's only $292,000 in total that's still due on those particular ones. Page 10 gives you pretty much an overview of when those payments are going to be due by, out for 5 straight years, and then it gives it in a sequence of 5 years at a time on that next column down. If you go down, further down, okay, to the where it's right in here where it starts to show up by 5-year increments to come to the total that you have. On page, let's see, absences, releases. On page 15. I thought this might need a little description this year because this footnotes has an added paragraph. It's this net pension liability that's down here at the bottom. And basically, I think you all know that Capers at the state is underfunded. And Capers obviously covers a lot of employees from all the school districts, the cities, counties, and other entities as well. Well, that CAPERS basically, they compute based upon life expectancies and ups and downs in the markets and what interest rates are going to do and when this person's going to, how long they're going to live. And all of that accumulates into here's what we think the liability is. And then they look at what assets they have against that, which is the money that all these entities have put into that. And they're saying that right now, I shouldn't say right now, this is always a year behind. June 30th, 2014, it was underfunded by $8,291,794,910. The state decided, about 2 years ago, that they weren't going to be on the hook for the whole thing. They were going to split this up and say what everybody's liability is for that particular underfunding. And as of June 30th, 2014, again, the reason they're a year behind is it takes them that long to do these actuarial values in order to determine what the amount's going to be, is that the district would supposedly be on the hook for $22,142,158. Now, like I said before, there is a ton of calculations that are going into this. Not the least of which is that if an employee were to start here, but then go to another school district and another school district, they got to say how much of each school district owes that particular part. They're off just a few years on what their calculation is, how long that person's going to live. If they're off on what the interest rates are going to do, or if they're off on what the market's going to do, all of those are going to have effects upon this. So it's a rather arbitrary value, even though they put a lot of work in getting to that particular amount. As a presentation under Kansas Municipal Accounting and Auditing Guide, this is all that's ever going to happen to your financial statements, is it's going to show as a footnote as to what your potential liability is. If you were to go to GAAP basis statements, you'd actually have to book that particular liability. So it would have a huge effect on your balance sheet if you were to do that. So keep that in mind. Page 17, we have compliance with Kansas statutes. And we have to indicate whether there was any issues with Kansas statutes. And you did have one. You had there was a fund that had a negative cash balance of $15,124 as of the end of the year. The reason, though, it had a negative cash balance is it's a reimbursement type fund. You incur the expenses and then you're supposed to receive the funding. Unfortunately, that funding didn't come until July 2015. So even though it's a statutory violation, because it's covered by a reimbursement that's going forward, it kind of gets you out of the fact that it's a statutory violation, and that's the reason that's worded the way it is in that particular one. If you go to page 18 and 19, one of the things that the state of Kansas likes to do is be able to see things at a glance as to what's going on. So they want to see what the certified budget is. Certified budget is what you guys published in August of the previous year. That adjustment to comply with legal max is what the state turns around and tells you, no, this is what it's going to be. So that's where they reduced your general fund and your supplemental general fund for the year. If you turn to the next page. What you get to do is take any budget credits to increase your budget back up again. And budget credits are things like federal grants that aren't budgeted for or reimbursed expenses, that type of thing. So in the general fund, you had $146,339 worth of budget credits. So your overall budget ended up being $14,984,243. Your expenditures were $14,984,243. So you had a zero over under budget. And what you want to see in this column that's to the far right is either zeros or brackets. And as you can see, all the rest of them have brackets or they're sitting at zero, which means that you were either under or right at budget and therefore didn't have a budget violation, which is what the state's looking for. On page 20 and 21, you finally get actually into looking at the separate funds. And as you can see in the general fund, we don't have any property taxes coming in. compared to 2014. And as you're all aware, all that money had to be sent, general fund wise, had to be sent up to the state, and the state turns around and sends you a block grant. And that's the reason you went from state equalization aid being 10 million to state equalization aid being 12 million. So that's the reason it's up. And actually, if you look at the state equalization, how much it went up by and how much the taxes went down by, you actually received a little bit more than what the net change was from the year before. Probably not as much as you would have received, though, if you'd actually received the ad valorem taxes directly. That's what I'm seeing on most districts is they're taking property taxes from this county and they're actually giving some of that to another county in the form of a block grant. Your total cash receipts went from 15 million to 14 million, so they did go down this year. Part of that's due to the change in way how the taxes are handled, and you also had not as much in reimbursed expenses and donations as you had the year before. The net effect on page 22 is that your expenses had to go down in order to keep in track with that. And there's several line items as you look down through that are less than what they were last year. In fact, including if you add up all of the transfers, I think they were even a little bit less than they were the year before. But transfers, they're going to vary from year to year depending on where the money's needed most. And that's the reason why you might see at-risk being down, but you see capital outlay being up, vocational education going down, but not virtual education, but the contingency reserve going up. So that's what happens on those particular line items. Supplemental general, which is the next page, it changed by $267,923 in terms of cash receipts. Again, it went down from the year before. Most of that was in the ad valorem property tax, which was down to, went from $2.5 million down to $1.6 million. Some of the other ones actually went up a little bit, but that one went down the most. State equalization aid, again, went up again to help cover some of what was dropped in ad valorem tax. After that, if you turn to K-12 at risk, 13, I think that was another one that there was a big change in. Yeah, it changed about $76,000. Your cash receipts were up a little bit over the year before, $2,647,000 to $2,678,000, and again that was mostly due to the fact that you increased your transfers from general and supplemental general over into that particular fund. Let's see, capital outlay, which is on page 31. It saw a rather dramatic increase from the year before, but part of that's due to the fact that you're now receiving some state aid in there. You also made some transfers over into there, and your expenditures were down quite a bit from the year before because you didn't have near as much on page 32, so it's down. So there wasn't near as much in building improvements in 2015 as it was in 2014. So this fund saw a nice little increase compared to the year before. Special education, which is on page 37. Cash receipts went from $3,000,007 to $3,009,000, and again the transfers were up in there. It doesn't take much in terms of changes in student population that are subject to the special ed in order for special ed to have to increase and keep going up because of that. Salaries was the main item that increased, went from $2 million to $2,350,000, but again it doesn't take too many students being added to that program for that to change. But on page 38, you did have your revenues exceed your expenditures, so this fund grew by $91,000 from the year before. After that, I think I want to change clear back to 58, only to show the change in there. Which is basically Your state equalization aid went up some, and your other, which is some of those bond proceeds, went into this, I believe. So that's the reason it's $6 million compared to $2 million the year before, which ultimately is going to help you with making debt payments as you go forward, is what that's going to help you with. And then page 60, biggest obvious thing was the bond proceeds. Was that first one, 15A, I think, was $63,160,000. And as you can see, that the bond proceeds went into there. The excess is what went over to the bond and interest fund. You had interest on the $6,000, so we're just getting started. So there wasn't much in the way of expenditures on this particular fund yet. Will be in the next couple of years as you go forward. Page 69. You're required to have an audit by Kansas statute, but you're also required to have an audit if you receive over $500,000 in federal aid that you expend within the year that it's being audited. As you can see, you spent $2,219,000. Now that particular number is going to go up as far as what the level is at which you don't have to have. So if you're 500,000, actually under 500,000, you don't have to have what they call a single audit. But if you're over that, you do right now. Well, that threshold is going to be raised to 750,000. But as you can see, you still got quite a bit more than that. So you'll probably always be subject to the single audit. Now, what that means is that when we come in, we have to look at certain programs out of this bunch of programs that are listed here, and we have to do detailed testing to determine if the kids that were given aid under this qualified in terms of eligibility. We also have to look to see that the school district complied with allowable costs, procurement, allowable activities, cash management. There's several categories that we have to look at in order to determine whether you have complied with what the federal grants say. Page 72. So we have to give a report, and the first report we give is under governmental auditing standards, and under it we have to give you an opinion looking at your internal control over financial reporting and also on your compliance with laws and regulations. Now, this particular one is looking at the financial statements as a whole. So it's looking at the financial reporting, it's looking at whether on compliance, whether you filed your 941s, et cetera. And on it, we're giving you a clean or unqualified opinion, saying that we felt that everything that we looked at was appropriately done. And the reason we have to say it kind of that way, because if you read through this, it's going to sound kind of like we're giving negative assurance, because we're going to say, first we're going to define what a deficiency is, and we're going to tell you what a material weakness is, and we're going to tell you a significant deficiency, and then we're going to say, given these limitations, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. That's because we don't look at 100% of the transactions. We'd literally have to sit in here, if we were to say anything else, and look at every transaction as it was being processed. And you don't want us to do that, and I'm sure she doesn't want us to do that. So what we do is we pull samples, and based on those samples, we make basically a prognosis of what we think went on. And based upon those tests, we did not have any items that we considered indications of either deficiencies or significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. And then the next letter, it starts on page 74. This one's going from looking at the financial statements as a whole to looking at just the federal funding and looking at specifically the programs that we selected for detailed testing, because we don't test every one of the programs either. They ask us to cover at least 50% of them each year. And if you're a low-risk auditee, you can actually go to 25%. But anyway, we again have to indicate to you that we feel that you've complied with those federal programs. We did not see anything that led us to believe that you had not complied with them. And on the internal control, I didn't mean to do that. Got it right in the eye, I think. The report on internal control is that basically you have to have controls in place to make sure that you're in compliance, and that's what the federal government expect. And again, it kind of reads like that first letter. It defines deficiencies, it defines significant deficiencies, defines material weaknesses, and again, we say that we do not have any material weaknesses to report. So basically, it's a clean or unqualified opinion. And last but not least, on page 76, we spent most of our time in terms of actual compliance features and looking at the food service program and the 21 First Century program this year. In previous years, we looked at special ed, and we kind of cycle those back and forth each year. So that's where we come up. And it doesn't make any difference that we went way over the 25% rule. You got to look at a minimum of 25% is what they're saying. So you can go over based upon the programs you selected. And it was food services chance this time, so we had to look at them. And the only other comment I guess I want to make is this is a summary, and this same summary goes in electronically to a place in Indiana. It's a clearinghouse. And generally by this time, I would tell you that I'm completely done with the audit, okay? Well, right now, I can't tell you that because the part that goes in electronically to the clearinghouse is still down. It's been down since early July. They had a breach in their security, and they're still trying to figure out what to do with it, apparently. They originally said they were going to be up in August, then they moved it to October, and now they moved it to December. If they don't hurry up, they're going to be so far behind on it, they're going to finally get it up. But basically, that's us inputting all the numbers that you saw on that one schedule in terms of federal expenditures, indicating whether we did or didn't have findings. Then we kind of hand it over to the district. They basically say, yes, we agree with what's on here. Then it comes back to us again for a second time to say that, yes, we agree with it, and then it goes in as a final product. So everything else is done with the audit, but unfortunately, I do have that hold up this year on that particular part. Okay. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
you.
And yes, thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much. All right, 5.02, ELR. You're up.
Can I go just do? Does that work? Yep. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rod Othout with DLR Group. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the mechanical system for Ottawa Middle School. And what I'd like to do is just give you a quick summary of what the narrative talks about, and then give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. But just in real high level, the plan is to replace all the rooftop units that generally provide the cooling and some of the heating. We're going to replace the building automation system that controls all that stuff. We're going to replace a dust collector in a wood shop, and then provide cooling for the wood shop, and then cooling for the locker room. And there's a small thing about the hot water having a long time getting a big duration of time to get to some of the labs in the locker room. We're going to solve that at that time as well. And then finally, a fresh test and balance to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. A couple of details I want to point out in the narrative just to maybe intercept some questions you might already have. Generally, in narratives like this, we like to list at least two of the basic design for the products that we're considering as part of the design documents. And many of you might know that it's very customary in this business to at least list manufacturers that the original design is based on. So there'll be in this narrative, we've preliminarily put out the manufacturers that you have in your school district right now, and that after discussions with staff are manufacturers that you're comfortable with. Those aren't intended to be the sole manufacturer that's going to be allowed to bid on the project. They're just a manufacturer that we're looking at to develop the detailed documents on. So you'll see, I think Siemens is listed in there for controls, and Aon is listed in there as a rooftop unit manufacturer. Those are just what we're considering right now for our basic design for the documents. So I just want to point that out because sometimes it gets, when people look at that, they think that we've already settled on one manufacturer, and that's not the case. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. Go ahead, sir.
Are you going to bid the controls before you bid the actual HVAC systems?
I think it's important to bid them at least separately or take numbers separately. There's quite a game that gets played with manufacturers and trying to combine the equipment and the controls together. And oftentimes it conceals what might be the best value for both of those particular products. So we think it makes sense to either, I don't know that it matters to bid one before the other, but certainly to bid them separately so you can see the amount, see the values for each particular product. In addition to that, I'll add that it's important to be able to see the pricing for all of the manufacturers that submit bids for, say, rooftop equipment or for controls, because there may be a reason to consider a particular manufacturer that was slightly more expensive than the low bidder, but they have some distinct advantages, either maintenance or reliability or something else that would benefit you. So they may not be, say, the least expensive on bid day, but can be determined to be the least expensive for a life cycle cost.
But if you bid you don't think you should bid controls a month early and then come back and bid the equipment after that? I mean, isn't it helpful to have your controls decided upon and then go back and bid your equipment?
We haven't seen that in the past.
Yeah, at all?
We have bid controls early on projects before, but I haven't seen a competitive advantage one way or another.
Okay. And, we had this discussion a month ago, or whenever you were last here, okay? And you're confident, and you're representing tonight, that the specs you're drawing isn't giving Aon a competitive advantage. And we're not only going to see multiple companies bidding, but we're going to see multiple manufacturers bidding on bid day.
I'm confident in telling you that our spec is not going to preclude other manufacturers. I can't stand in front of you and say you're going to get bids from multiple manufacturers because I don't control what they decide to bid on and not bid on.
Right, but you do control, your specs will control whether they
we
bid
do
or not,
control our
right?
specs, and they will be open enough so that you get a good quality product that you're expecting, but you can get competitive bids from several manufacturers.
Okay. Your controls, the reason I'm kind of going back on that is, you got Blue Valley School System, you got the Ottawa's OU, you got NCCC, Neosho Community College, and they went with an open system on controls. And in here, Siemens is clearly a closed system. And so I guess from my perspective, I'm concerned about long-term expenses for maintenance and all that if we're speccing just Siemens. And I think, just to be blunt, okay, I'm not an expert, you are, so I'm going to defer to you. That's why I kept asking, I want you on the record for this. If you have Siemens, that may or may not affect what equipment you have later on if you have an open system. So you're telling me you can have either controls and either equipment and one won't affect the other?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions?
Will maintenance be all right with it? With whatever product? Or
That would be
will
the
there
plan. And I think that's the important part about making sure that we see numbers from multiple manufacturers so that it's always easy to pick the low bid day number. I'm not sure that school districts are doing themselves a favor by making that choice, and I think the CMR process that you've selected for this project allows you a little bit more transparency on some of the subcontractors so you can make more value-based decisions. So I'm going to encourage you guys when the numbers come in, let's make a decision that's a lifetime decision for you and not just what makes sense on that particular day.
How far along are the plans?
Well, golly, Amber, help me. When do we?
Plan
Yeah.
What's that?
January, the exact date escapes me right now, but January for the middle school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thanks.
So we need a
a
motion.
motion to approve.
I make a motion, we approve the OMS system design as presented. Is that what you, is that how you wanted it worded?
Mechanical system.
Sorry, mechanical system.
Yeah.
There you go.
Second.
I can't see unless I hold it just right.
A motion and a second to approve the, schematic design that's submitted and to proceed with the development of the mechanical system, right?
Yep.
Okay,
I have just general discussion.
all right.
Obviously, by my line of questioning, I'm very concerned that we have a true open system, that we aren't heading down a road that one certain manufacturer is going to have a competitive advantage either on the controls or on the system itself. So I just want to make it very clear that my yes vote tonight is predicated upon having a totally open system, that we don't find that when we come bid day, where I start asking questions down the road, that there was a piece of equipment that is specialized just for one manufacturer or the other. Because Aon, whereas I'm not saying anything wrong with them, they're a very specific type of HVAC system, and it's hard to compare. And so I'm just saying, I'm putting it on DLR that when we bring this back for bid, that the line of questioning tonight was specifically so that we have multiple companies bidding multiple manufacturers. And so I've heard assurances from Rod, that's the way it's being designed. So I just want to clarify that in my vote.
If there's no other discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. Opposed, okay, 6-0, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
Okay, and now, Josh,
Budget.
budget.
We scared him away.
We did.
Josh, you scared the children away.
I'm sure it had nothing to do with that audit discussion.
It was riveting.
Well, this is an update of the document that was presented 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I don't recall specifically. The only modifications to this at the middle school is the addition of the HVAC upgrades. Also, there was a small addition for some additional weather stripping on some exterior doors. That's $1,600 number there. But you can see that the cost of all the HVAC upgrades that Rod outlined in the narrative that was in front of you is a little over $1.5 million. Comparing that to the bond budget, that brings the middle school improvements to a little over $81,000 over budget. It was around $56,000 over budget the last time we looked at it, so adding the HVAC components here only added around $25,000, $30,000, somewhere in there. But as you've seen from the other documents, this overage is more than compensated by the savings we've seen on some of the other preliminary budgets. So
I was going to say you had some making up to do, but maybe
Yeah.
you've already done it.
I think we're there.
Dang that, Megan.
Yeah.
I surprisingly have a couple questions.
Okay, shoot.
How big is the middle school? Does anybody, do you know, or does Amber, does somebody know how many square feet we have in the middle school?
I don't have it off the
I
top of
just-
my head.
What's that? 120,000? Okay. So when we look at a budget for 1.5 million and this for the HVAC, and we're not doing the whole building, we're doing part of the building, are you comfortable that that's budget is realistic for 120,000 square foot building and for the scope that we're doing?
Let's see, that works out to, help me out here, 1.5 million,
About
120,000.
$15, $20,
15,
$15,
$20
whatever it
per
is.
foot.
It won't be 20, but it'd be 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
And compare that to, I think the stuff we were looking at for the new systems, Rod, help me out, like at the elementary school was around like 26 or 25, somewhere in there? Low 20s. Okay. So
But
in
we're-
this instance, we're replacing all of the rooftop units. We're redoing the building management system, replacing equipment in the shop area. I mean, you see all the stuff that we're doing there. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, half of what you'd expect for a new building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, along the same questions I asked Rod,
Mm-hmm.
as our CM, if you will, are you comfortable, even though I read in the document tonight was very heavily Aon and very heavily Siemens, and are you comfortable that the documents you've seen thus far would give a open field for all manufacturers?
I have reservations about Siemens and companies like that that are a proprietary system because of ongoing costs associated with it, both in terms of if you go back and you do renovations, as well as just regular maintenance. That also applies to other systems like fire alarm. We've seen that before where you have a proprietary system. There can be additional costs. We've had a couple of conversations internally already about that between ourselves and DLR. And I think the conversation is ongoing about what the implications are for those types of companies being allowed to bid a project like this. Obviously, they do a great job. They have a great product. But there are some ramifications that the district needs to be aware of moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think there's huge and you jumped ahead, so let's jump to fire alarm. Are we putting in a fire alarm that is open, or are we going to put a private closed system in?
The conversations thus far is that I have suggested that we don't do allow a proprietary system like Simplex or
Correct.
something like that. But a decision has not been made yet.
Okay. And why would we not want to do a closed system, a proprietary system?
The two issues immediately are just the ongoing cost of regular maintenance. I mean, that's the only people that can work on it, so they have a higher rate. There's no competition there. And then when you do renovations, it's almost obscene, some of the costs that they'll charge you because you have to use them. You can't
Correct.
allow anyone else.
Thank you. That's exactly my point. So I guess the question is, as our construction manager, it's your thought process, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I am.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay. That
okay.
both with HVAC, we have a totally open system and we have open controls. And with the fire alarm, we have an open open system. And so what, are we leaning that, are we headed that way, or do we need to, as a board, give direction? How would be most helpful? What do we need to do?
I think there's still some conversations to be had between DLR and staff to fully understand the ramifications both on bid day as well as ongoing maintenance and cost and ramifications for the district. So at this time, I don't see any board action required. I think there's still conversations to be had at the staff level.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when do you see these decisions being made, and will you bring them back to the board?
It should be happening quickly, and I'll leave the second question for Jeannie.
If we have a contract with Lloyd Builder, and we will, we'll bring to the board on December 14th a proposal to go out for bid at that time.
Okay. Very good. At least you know how one board member feels.
On the heating and cooling system in the middle school, obviously you're reusing the ductwork. Are they going to be cleaning that out? I mean, it's got 20 years worth of dirt built up in those ducts. Is that anywhere in this bid to have those ductworks cleaned out?
It is not included right now, no.
What would something like that run to clean out the ducts in that building?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head, Tim. I mean, it's certainly something that could be priced up and a decision made once the actual cost is identified.
Should we just have students crawl through and dust them in?
You know, in middle school, they're still really small, so it works.
Especially the sixth graders.
Yeah.
That's good initiation.
I got a toddler that likes to crawl through tunnels. Put pads on his knees. It'll be okay.
Just put one of those fluffy coats on and they'll
Yeah.
just go right through.
Any other questions? If not, then we may need a motion to approve the budget for the middle school mechanical system.
I make a motion to approve the budget for the OMS mechanical systems.
Second.
Okay. If there's no more discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 6-0. Thank you, Josh. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Exterior and interior.
So we have some display boards and we also have pictures. We might just pass that one around up here. So cool. We won't pass the brick around.
Not too heavy. Okay,
We
so
also have pictures.
pictures too. So we'll start with, do you want me to kind of go through everything, Jeannie, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with that interior board that is over that direction right now. So basically, these are all of the finishes that we will have in the new elementary school. Colors and products represented here. We've gone over these with, thank you, perfect. We've gone over these with the staff, and I believe everyone is on board with this color scheme. It is a little bit of an adjustment from the group of us that went to Oak Grove. It's a couple little tweaks just to get it to be yours. So starting in the right-hand top corner, you can kind of see there's some green and a piece of, green and a piece of carpet there. So that represents all the colors that will be in that pod, which happens to be the kindergarten and first grade wing. So that little tiny green square on the bottom will be what's on the floor, along with two other neutral colors, and that's called VCT or vinyl composition tile. You have that throughout your district already. It's a durable material, gets waxed every year, and obviously easy to clean. And then above that is green sitting on a piece of carpet. The green is some of the casework. And then the carpet. There's carpet in the classrooms along with just a little bit of VCT as well, where we've got a wet area for students. And we'll get into the classroom level in a little bit. I can point that out. So each classroom has a little bit of VCT and mostly that carpet. And then the wall color is that tiny little gray square up in the very top right-hand corner. So moving to the left, the next pod would be the blue pod. And so same idea, the bottom left-hand blue is what's on the floor. And then above that, there's blue casework, then the carpet throughout the classrooms. And then there's two swatches of paint there. So the top right, again, is the wall color. And then beneath it is another square of blue. We've got blue that signifies entries to classrooms, just so the kids can kind of see. Using the colors on the pods kind of gives them a little bit of wayfinding. They can remember if they're in the right spot or not. And then jumping down to the very bottom left-hand corner, that is the third pod in the purple pod. So that would be laid out identically there. Then the section in the center that has a little bit of teal, that is the media center. So that will have carpet throughout, and then those paint colors, there's just a teeny bit of teal in there kind of as an accent and to kind of, again, signify, hey, this is the media center, and then just a little bit of the teal flooring in that area as well. The colors to the left and kind of top left, that is the media center area. The administration area. So it's got a little bit more of a professional feel to it. Would have the wood tones like that is labeled as the doors wood tones like that. Neutral wall color is kind of that big swatch of goldish color there. And then these tiles here at the bottom, the three squares that are all similar, those are kind of the neutral floor tiles that kind of tie the whole school together throughout. What else? And then I guess down here to the kind of, right in there. Those are a couple more paint colors, and those would be in the gym, along with, of course, a wood floor. Wood-looking floor. It's a rubber floor, but it looks like wood, same as what they had in Oak Grove. So, and the one thing I missed, I guess, in the top left-hand corner, that's the restrooms. So that's what's called an epoxy floor. So great slip resistance for all the water that they drop on the floor, but still very durable, long-lasting floor with those paint colors. And then the right-hand side, that's what the toilet partitions would be. So not as important at this level, but they are graffiti resistant, so they can't do really probably any damage to them at this level. So, and yes, and so then these are the counter, where it says Corian, or the bottom left-hand corner, are the countertops in the classrooms. And then that color right next to it would be some of that flooring I talked about that would be right where the wet areas are. That would be that. And then these are two other laminate colors that the casework that is not colorful in the classroom would have these colors on it. Any questions on any of those?
The floor for the gym,
Uh-huh.
what's the lifespan on that? Because we've seen, I think it was at the new ORC building, it had to be replaced relatively quickly just because it was used, I guess, more than anticipated. And I've seen that in other public gym type of facilities where it just, either the paint on top of it, the stickers or the lines or whatever fade, or the floor comes up or whatever.
Okay.
So how much use can we expect out of that?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any issues with it coming up. It's a rubber, like I said, a rubber product that gets laid down, and we'll do moisture testing, everything beneath it to be sure there aren't any adhesion issues. But it's a flooring we put in almost all of our elementary schools, and I haven't had to replace any yet. So I think it's a good 10, 15-year product if installed correctly.
What about maintenance for it? Does it?
It's just sweep it off. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Easy.
Yeah.
If they puke, not gonna stay. No.
Yeah, right.
Good.
So, if no questions on the interior, we can move on to the exterior board. And this is, I think, identical to what we had at Oak Grove. So the photographs that you saw in your packet are great representations because it's real life. So the three colors at the bottom, of course, are the three colors of brick that are throughout on the school, with the red brick kind of being used the most and the other two really being used just as an accent. That small square above it, that is cast stone, and that's used at windowsills for the durability to get water, kind of any water that comes down, it'll go straight. It won't go into your building, it'll go straight, continue straight outside of the wall. So great durable material, but a good accent to the brick as well. And then directly above that would be so windows, anything that's aluminum storefront. It's like this system here you walk through there, that would be that kind of champagne color. So any doors, windows, anything like any openings like that throughout that are aluminum would be that color. Above that is metal panel color. So we have a little bit of metal panel on the building, and it would be that same champagne color just so it matches up with the storefront systems. And then the swatch to the left is what we call EIFS, and it's basically a stucco type of system. And that's just a more economical and lightweight product that we use at very high up locations where from a distance you can't really it almost looks like metal panel or even stone up high, but it's a low maintenance and more economical product. So, any questions on that?
How do we keep the birds out
Of the building?
of the ethos?
Oh, well, they shouldn't be able to get in there. I mean, you can see that detail right there. The EIFS is still a flat product, so once installed, there really isn't anywhere for them to. Maybe you've had experience already somewhere with
I
it.
don't know, Garfield had trouble when they did their, I don't know, the last bond. They had birds in the EIFS, so it seemed like it was a deal to
Okay.
the maintenance guys, so I don't know.
It might have been most likely it was probably in the detail at the top. You see that piece of coping at the top, the piece of metal that runs along the top. Places like that would be most susceptible to, if it's, again, not installed correctly and not tight enough tolerances, they could get up inside of there. Otherwise, it's a system that's just installed layer by layer off of the studs, and there's really nowhere for them to be inside of that system if it's done that way. So.
Yeah. Well, it might have been something wasn't done right. Look for the birds. Imagine that. Look for the birds, that's all I can tell you.
So who
I got bird complaints.
who all worked on picking these colors, or staff, like teacher involvement, anything like that?
Yep, definitely. Yep, a whole staff group. And especially having the whole entire group that got to go see Oak Grove was really invaluable, because then we were really able to get everybody's take on everything right as we were there. Seeing it in person is probably the best way to see it and get your opinion on it. So,
But it still looks just like Oak Grove.
the outside looks like it. The
that's
inside,
what I'm
some of the
asking.
colors are the same, different.
Okay.
Did I miss the colors for the lunchroom? Did you have those up there?
They are on there. let's see.
The tile is a mixture of all the tile,
That is right, yes.
and I don't remember what the wall colors were.
And I believe the wall colors are that neutral color of the
Probably,
gymnasium.
yeah.
Because I know the tile on the floor was multicolored.
Yes.
And it was really bright and cheery. And
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and
Just
same
like
idea.
you, Brian
Yes.
Sharon, yes. You know, not that this is important, but, you know, the exterior, you know, doesn't really look like any other building that we're building. Is that a concern? Is that should be a consideration at all, or?
Well, that's up to you guys to decide
Okay.
ultimately. I think the design really comes out of the function of the school, as far as the shape of it and all that, and the materials that we're using are extremely durable materials, long-lasting materials. So, I think all of that plays in. That certainly plays into what we consider when we're doing our design.
It's a pretty school. You need to drive up to Turner. to
Oh,
see it.
it's a very pretty
a
school. I
beautiful-
just asked the general overall question. I'm not saying, I'm not weighing in opinion one way or another. I'm just asked the question to hear the response. I mean,
No, our schools don't match, if that's the
They don't
question.
match.
you know, I mean, it's fine. I
All of our
don't
schools
have an
are
opinion one way or another.
distinguished.
Just
They're all
asking
different.
the question.
They don't have to
Yeah. No, I guess kind of on that, I just have a general question too. Lincoln is very different on the inside. Like they put shapes and they did red, blue, and yellow, I think, and primary colors and things like that for educational stimulus. I mean, all evidence to support all of that. Why didn't we go that route with this? I mean, or because we did then and now we're not. I just wondered if there was a reasoning or anything.
All I can say is it's still the same concepts. You solve the different colors throughout. Ultimately, it ends up being up to all the people who are going to use the building as far as what they want to see in there. Again, this was a prototype, so what we took most of our 99% of our steps from was the Oak Grove School. So. I know what you're talking about. They have kind of the windows that are at angles and things like that. Some of that really is just, we didn't have it at Oak Grove, and everyone loved the Oak Grove School so much in the way that it was all put together that we stuck with that design concept. But a lot of concepts are still there. So the coloring and the wayfinding and some of the fun playfulness you'll see throughout this school as well, just done a little bit differently.
All right, we need a motion to approve the exterior.
Madam
interior.
President, I move that we allow DLR Group to move into creating the construction documents of the new elementary
Well,
school.
Wait, stop.
Wrong
Oops.
one.
We need a motion before that to approve
The exterior
Oh.
and interior.
You can do that one too, but this one first.
He's just excited about the elementary school.
I'll get this one. I move to approve the exterior and interior design for the new elementary school.
Sick.
There's no more discussion. Everyone in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? 6-0. Okay, thank you.
Harold, you're on.
Madam
All right,
President,
Harold.
let me try this again. I move that we allow the DLR Group to move into creating the construction documents for the new elementary school, but I'm going to add that I want to see an open design on HVAC and fire alarm.
I don't know.
The motion needs to be what was written in the agenda.
So I guess when, okay,
That's separate.
what's that?
This is for the construction. This is for construction documents for the new elementary school. This isn't for construction documents for the HVAC system.
Right, but would the HVAC system be contained in these construction documents? Would the fire alarm system be contained in these construction documents?
Yes, it is.
What's that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, it can die for lack of second. Nobody wants that.
Sounds good to me. I'll second it.
So state your motion again, please.
That we are ready to move, I'm sorry, that I move that we allow the DLR Group to move into creating the construction documents for the new elementary school with open design of HVAC and open design of the fire alarm and other systems, i.e. non-proprietary systems.
I have a question. How will this affect our moving into the construction document phase? How would your amendment to, well, how would your
Well,
motion?
based upon what Rod has said that this is what we're doing, and based upon the recommendation of the construction manager, it should have absolutely no effect on the construction documents. It's just one more way for me to assure that when they're creating the documents, they have a motion on the floor. It should not change one iota of what Rod stood right up here and said, and it's nothing against what Josh was promoting the same thing. So I guess from my standpoint, it actually is exactly what they stood up here and said. Am I wrong? I mean, Josh, am I wrong? Rod, am I wrong? Is that not what you said we were doing? You want multiple bids from multiple manufacturers, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just saying in my motion that I'm affirming that position that I've had all along.
And that's the way it was, the intent was anyway, just,
Right, that's the way
that's
the
the
intent.
intent
Right.
of the construction document anyway.
Absolutely,
Just
yes.
a little more verbose.
You're just holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone?
So then, does that beg the question about singling out other components of that? I mean, is it necessary to do that, Josh? Or does that single out components that don't need to be singled out? For instance, flooring or
Yeah.
roofs, because we had roof problems before,
Yeah.
or whatever. I mean,
That's a great point.
I
We
don't
could do
know.
this in any system or any part of your building. We could say, we require your sinks to only be made by one particular manufacturer, and it would be the same issue that Harold is concerned about. So, and I think I've said that before when I've been here, every spec that we write, unless directly told by you, we always keep our specs open to allow that competitiveness to the manufacturers that we trust that can do the job. So,
Perfect. So this should be no issue, right?
right, I think Herkins, yeah.
So it should be no issue.
Susan, are you saying like maybe instead of specifying the HVAC and the fire alarm, we should just be saying that all designs should?
I think I said all. I'm sorry. I meant all. I just was giving
I don't know
examples.
why that component would need to be held out.
Yeah,
That
I
was my
don't either,
question.
because when you presented, a month ago, you specifically said that this is what you were going to do. It was going to be open.
Right, absolutely. That's the only way we're going to get competitive bids, is if we keep it open and we usually allow at least 3 manufacturers on every single system throughout your building.
Perfect. Then I don't see any problem.
So are you amending that then to say that any bids will be open, as opposed to just fire alarms?
Yeah,
and-
that's what
okay.
I was,
All right. I'm
right,
just
that's what I
trying to be
meant.
clear.
Is it any, I'm sorry, I just was using fire alarm and HVAC as an example, but it would be any all.
Terry, do you want to
Including
read back
sinks
the
and
motion?
faucets and,
I think it's been restated.
I'm confused.
We're going to move, that we allow the DLR group to move into creating the construction documents for the new elementary school with open, any bids will be open design and non-proprietary systems.
yes.
And that's the way it was intended anyway.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so all in favor, raise your right hand. Oppose. Okay, 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Okay, we have a report from ORC.
I'm Tommy Sink, the Ottawa Recreation Director, and have been for the past 4 years. This is going to make my presentation seem very simple, folks.
That's what you think.
One of the first questions everybody asks about Ottawa Recreation is, how's the Goppert Building doing on attendance? Well, I can tell you, through the first 9 months of 2012, we were right at 12,000. The first thing you're going to think, well, that's not very many. But there are reasons for that. Any programs that we conduct inside the facility, basketball, volleyball, whatever, there is no head count. Or anything else that goes on for like special events, like lawn and garden, quilt show, job fair, after prom, birthday parties, wedding receptions, funeral dinners, day on the job with Ottawa High School and West Franklin High School, or any other events that go on. The building is busy and we have a lot of traffic. There's just not a head count. That 12,000 the first 9 months was for day visits to use the track or the cardio equipment. In the evenings, they say, well, how's the gym doing? As you know, our partners with USD 290, you've had a little bad luck with your gymnasium over at the middle school. So between the high school and the middle school and the ORC, we've been doing intramurals in 7th and 8th grade girls basketball and trying to schedule games and move around and work everybody out. Those numbers don't count, but we're busy after school every day. Also, communities and schools comes over there after school for their program in the afternoon. So again, very misleading on what the attendance is. One of the great things about we worked on very hard for Ottawa Recreation is the partnerships that we established. I just mentioned the one we had with the school district and the programs. We work back and forth. We also have great partnership with the city, the hospital, communities and schools, United Way, the Vintage Park Retirement Home, Police and Fire Chamber, the Veterans Administration, the Gun Guys, Swan Arch, COF, the list goes on. We just do different programs with them. We help them, they help us. It's a great relationship. One of the things that we've tried to broaden out over the years is I grew up in Ottawa and did recreation. It was baseball, softball, basketball, that type of thing. Now our range is 2 to 92. And those programs that are not necessarily sports are pottery, martial arts, Zumba, yoga, guitar lessons, kids camp, senior coffees. We take time to spend time with the veterans. Recreation is not only physical for the body, also for the mind. Poster contests, entertainment youth, teaching tots. There's the 2-year-olds that come in that we spend time with, putting the round ball in the round hole. Very important. Bow fishing, fur and trapping. The list goes on. As I say, there's so much that we do that is just not with physical recreation. We encourage people to use the parks. We have beautiful parks here in Ottawa. Kansas Park, the walking track, the trails, the track that goes around this block or two right here. Our numbers are picking up as people come back in and cold weather brings them back in. Those faces that we haven't seen for a while, they're happy to see us on them days when it's 30-something degrees in the morning. So we're doing fine. I had to smile today. There's not much that I find at the Goppert building that isn't new. But I'd walked by the trophy case and saw an article from 1947 when Ottawa Recreation was developed by Orlis Cox. I finally found something in the building that was older than I am. That tickled me because we're in our 68th year. I've gave you a very brief wrap-up of what's going on, and we continue to grow. We focus on the quality of programs and not the quantity, although we have a large amount of programs. As long as we have participation, we continue to offer those. So do y'all have any questions for me? It's been a great year for us and a busy year, and looking forward to 2016.
So, you say you've got growth happening. Do you have numbers? Is there a way for us to get numbers that show participation in the different sports or the different other activities that aren't sports?
Absolutely, we can put those together, but it would take some time to do that. It's not like just signing at the door. I mean, it takes time to go through all the programs that we have and put those numbers. But yes, it can be done.
Okay. I think it could be helpful to the public to just kind of see where if their tax money is sustainable or if there aren't enough active participants to help offset costs. So it could be interesting to see, because I know there were some challenges with some of the sports this year where my kids didn't get to play them because there wasn't enough people signing up or something like that.
And that's true. In today's world, competitive sports has become a very big thing. And those folks who want to be competitive, we don't have the opportunity to offer competitive sports. They have to go out of town. We focus on recreation for the general population and fun, sportsmanship, and that's what we're about. Not that we wouldn't have competitive, we just don't have those large enough numbers that we can give them the competition that they want here in Ottawa. Anything else?
Just one other thing, I know the community always doesn't quite understand the funding relationship for our, it's a pass-through basically. Is it working fairly well with Terry and Dr. Stroh about, how all that works and how it all ties together, and for the audit and everything, is that all going well?
It is. Linda comes over in early July, and we work through the revenue side
Okay.
of the budget, so they know how much tax revenues to expect.
Okay. All right, so it's working all right.
I'm not aware of any issues, and
Yeah, I just know that we're always, we end up being responsible, so I just want to make sure that it's good and open and tied together.
And she also sends over the bank reconciliation on a monthly basis, so that's
Okay.
reviewed.
Good deal.
Now, I think this causes some confusion, so I want to make sure I understand it correctly. The state of Kansas requires that the school district fund it, but it's not our funds that are used. It's a different tax levy specifically for this purpose. Is that correct? Like, it's not like ORC's taking money from us and we're not taking money from it. It's
The
completely
state of
separate.
Kansas does not require school districts to levy the taxes for ORC. That's happens to be how it is here and in many districts. In some places, it's the city that levies the mill rate that brings money for that city's particular recreation commission. Here, it's run through the school district. So we levy the taxes. It's separate than our money.
Okay.
It's never our money. If there were no ORC, we wouldn't have any extra money. So it's completely separate, even though it runs through us.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just
And
want to
the
make sure.
reason they go through the school district is the tax base is broader outside city limits that way. So they have a broader tax base to draw from.
Right, that was the premise. Yeah.
And that depends on the municipality. Sometimes, it's just kind of interesting who levies that tax. Yeah.
anything else?
Thank you, Tommy.
Okay, thank
You all
you.
have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too.
too.
Thank you.
Executive session.
Well,
20
do we have
minutes.
any board reports? We have board reports first.
Eugene Field Site Council, not as well attended as we would have liked. We were discussing the walking school bus, and we had a collaborative with the EFFE, and we'll be continuing that discussion. Ms. Fanning, is it January? We're going to restart discussion in January. Okay, so the January site council meeting, we do have a site council in December we'd love to see people at, but we'll be discussing the walking school bus a little bit further in January and hoping to get some community partners that would like to support that effort.
Anybody else doing anything?
Oh, I had an after-school program, one too. Sorry, it was a busy week. After-school program, everything's going well. No concerns to state at this time, and just continuing to work on what we always do. So
Well, I've been doing the fun things. I saw the musical at the high school. That was good.
It was good.
Attended a jazz band concert. Also, last Wednesday took part in the mock interviews for the juniors at the Ottawa High School, and that's always just a great experience. We have just some amazing kids over there. Amazing.
Resilient.
Very resilient indeed, and learning a lot. They are. And then I have the opportunity to teach fourth graders at the one-room school at the depot, and that's just always a blast. That's so fun. And anyway, so that's what I've been doing. So we need an executive session if someone would like to move that. 20 minutes. And we need Dr. Stroh, Mr. Norris, and Dr. Cobbs.
Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of consultation with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in attorney-client relationship, and that the board return to the open meeting at 8:40?
Yeah.
Yeah, at 8:40 in this room The executive session is required to protect attorney-client privilege and the public interest, and we would like to invite Dr. Stroh, Mr. Norris, and Dr. Cobbs.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Oppose? Okay.
Didn't go very well.
It goes over, all right.
All right, excuse me. Hey, you too, man. See you later.
I need a motion to come back into regular session.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand.
It's up.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Channeling Bill.
all right. Let's see, we don't need anything else except to approve personnel.
I make a motion that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
In its brevity. That's cool.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Oppose, 6. You oppose?
I do.
Okay, okay.
That's
It's
all
5-1 then. Okay. I just didn't know if you opposed or you
No,
were
no, no,
just
no.
late. Okay. Announcements.
I have a couple of announcements. We have a really pretty significant meeting on December 14th. So I will be talking with Linda, and I want you to think about having probably at least an hour and a half work session prior to that meeting, starting maybe at 5:30 on December 14th. We have one meeting in December. So I might suggest, because we have all this bond stuff going on and a number of things that are connected with that, that we have a work session. Then I also just want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Quiet week. Tomorrow's our last day.
Yes, my kids are thrilled. I'm a little less so.
Hey, my kids are thrilled, and I just don't care because I don't have to deal with them. I got to work still.
No. But I'm getting a new microscope that I ordered, so we're going to do some science, whether they like it or not.
There you go.
With all of that, we can adjourn if I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
They're playing the motion second game. Did you get all that?
Just make it up
All
as
in
you
favor,
go
raise your
along.
right hand.
Bill did, he made.
Twice. Deodorant.
So the girls and I are going to go to his funeral on